For the last decade, I've been on a mission to help people find expansion in their lives through holistic well-being, physical, mental, and spiritual. This journey, of course, started within with my own healing and then expanded outwards in my career teaching movement, meditation, and healthy eating, as well as practicing energy and sound healing. Through this journey of self-discovery, I've come to learn that my core purpose is to use my voice to facilitate healing for others. On this podcast, I interview expert guests to share some of the tools, approaches, and thought processes that have helped me delve deeper into what it means to be a spiritual being living a physical existence. For the past 13 years, Debbie Logan has been a food activist and educator, connecting organic farmers directly to homes in Johannesburg, ensuring that we receive the highest quality organic and ethically farmed fresh produce. Debbie has a very particular gift when it comes to understanding the energy of food and the relationships between the farmer and the land, between us and the food we eat, and between particular plants and or animal produce and how they complement each other to give us all-inclusive nourishment. As always, we have a beautiful conversation around the state of food today and what we can do to choose better for ourselves, our families, and the planet. Okay, shall we get into it? Thank you for being here.
I love being here.
So I think a nice way to open the conversation is for you to just give us the background and how you started Organic Emporium, because when I first started shopping with you, it was years ago, I think probably 10 years ago, and you had that tiny little store at the back of the Shell garage that I passed on my way home from the stables every day. And I don't know how I even found you there.
So you were never an online customer?
No, I just randomly found the little store.
Yeah, and we've been having good conversations about food ever since.
Yeah, and your approach to food and the way that you so beautifully emote the energy behind it has been such an inspiration for me in my journey with, healing my relationship with food and then writing my recipe book. That's why I wanted to have you on, because you just speak so beautifully about it and you're so knowledgeable about farming and why organic, why regenerative, and all of that. So why don't we start with how you started Organic Emporium?
Okay, so by the time you found me there by the Shell, that was 3 years into the journey. So the journey began 3 years before, when I started a blog. Took over a business that really wasn't doing anything. At the time, there wasn't any organic farmers. Nobody understood what organic meant. You had to stimulate the growth of organic farms, and you had to get people to understand why this food was so different and so important. And I started an online store from my garage, but the business then really wasn't a business, it was a crusade. It was about blogging. It was about education. Because I would walk farms to learn what organic really meant and the real meaning of organic, which isn't what it has become, which is another story. But the real meaning of organic actually was an alarm bell that rang in 1936 from Lord Northbourne in the UK, and he wrote the book Look to the Land, and he coined the term organic. And what he was doing is he was raising the alarm bell about farming becoming industrial. And the word organic meant you have to keep land and farming and the production of food in a natural system. That's the word organic.
Wow, I don't even know about that book. I've definitely got to read it.
I've read many people in the organic sector that blah, 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 but they don't know that. And at the same time, Jan Smuts in this country was making the same statement. His book was very difficult. I still can't read it. It's called Holism and Evolution.
Oh, wow.
So we were moving towards industrial farming. And these were, I think Lord Northbourne was a professor at Oxford in agriculture, was saying, danger, caution. You've got to keep nature in a system. And once you start putting that balance out, you're going to disease the land and yourself.
Wow.
Because we're changing the energy of what we're eating. So I started writing, got very, very, very passionate about that. I'd always been passionate about writing and about healing and about food. So once it all came together, I started a blog and then needed a connection piece where people could get this food. So I would travel and I would learn from farmers who were doing things differently. There were very few of them, and they obviously needed a market. And that's how Organic Emporium began. It was the first online store in Joburg to do meat, dairy, chicken. And I wrote recipes and blogs and and articles, and I would speak out about what's actually going on with food and why this food is so different and can we return back to eating it, and then there's the difference it makes to your life. That was then. And then it kind of grew and grew and grew, and then it got into first small store in Bryanston, and then it got into the bigger store, and then opening a restaurant, and then it died. And that's a long story in itself, but that's about the fact that real organic food doesn't belong in the capitalist model. Once you enter retail, you're entering the capitalist paradigm.
Yeah.
And even I was the most passionate person for farmers. The farmers. You've got to understand who the farmer is, work with the farmers, support the farmers. But once I'd enter that paradigm, I'm in a retail paradigm. It becomes all about the landlord's money, pressure, not the farmer.
Yeah, I remember us talking about the energy behind that.
You saw me turn into a monster.
Yeah.
You know, when that passion just went down the toilet, I couldn't write anymore, couldn't be enthused anymore. It was all about running retail.
Yeah.
And I became very unhappy.
And now since the store imploded, you've gone back to just small scale online.
Small scale online, elevating the conversation through my own personal experience. Having to heal from that burnout has been incredible. Food has been a big part of it, but there's been more. So when you and I talk food now, we're talking about energy. We know it's about energy.
Yeah.
So I'm less about, before I was very kind of Nazi and very stuck on putting meaning into the word and what it was and very, very strict. And now I'm more about, there's an entire, when it comes to energy, the context is broader. So your emotional energy. For me, it's now crazy looking back at the monster I became and the anxiety I used to live with, getting anxious about what I was eating. And I saw a lot of people in the store anxious, ill, sick. We used to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
When you are connecting to the real energy of food from the best place, which is I'm in touch with love and value for myself and my own life. And when I connect with that, and I appreciate that I'm part of a larger body of energy that wants what's best for me, when I'm eating true organic food, I'm connecting to that knowledge every bite I take, that here is food that is nourishing, that comes from land where the farmer is looking after the whole biodiversity, the insect, the butterflies, they're all there. The universes of life in the soil have been looked after and they're being kept alive. And then nature from that point of view gives us food and then we eat it. She feeds us, we feed her back. When you connect with that consciousness and you are coming from a place of that love of life and that knowledge that we supported, it's very different to coming at it from fear. I'm sick, I'm bad.
Yeah.
I saw people in that store. It was a hell in the end. But I saw a lot of very diseased people thinking food was good. But there was this neurosis. What's the next toxin? This is bad. It's gluten-free.
I was a guest on somebody else's podcast yesterday, and we actually touched on this a little bit because I was speaking about my book. And I mentioned how me coming from a background of having had an eating disorder, I went through a period where I was on the right track, quote unquote, but there was still that obsessive behavior about figuring out what's bad and what's good, what's right and what's wrong, and putting these labels on the food the whole time. Whereas now, 10 years later, it's just like you say, it's become more about the energy of what I'm eating, the energy with which I consume it. And I place more emphasis on where does this food come from and therefore what energy does it hold, as opposed to just breaking it down to, oh, this contains these specific nutrients and therefore it's good and this one doesn't, so it's bad. When you were talking now, I just got goosebumps and I got a tear in my eye because you so, as you always do, you so beautifully encapsulated what it really means to eat in this way. But let's break that down for people in a way that's a little bit more practical for those who don't really understand all of this esoteric stuff that we're talking about. So why is this food different, and why should we be choosing to eat this way instead of just going to the normal supermarket and buying whatever is on the shelf?
Okay, so when we buy food from a farmer that is farming organically, and there's all sorts of words now, regenerative, sustainable, etc. What that really means is that farmer is farming in a way that he is in alignment with nature's laws for how food is produced. It's a completely different paradigm for what happens when you walk into a store and into the retail system, where you are attaching to industrial farming. When you eat from a farmer who's producing food that way, you're connecting to the energy of the healthy ecosystem, that farm. And that comes out in the food. So the food is being grown in healthy soil. That means that the plant is very much alive, vibrant, happy, full of antioxidants, which is the plant's immune system. If the plant was sick, that's low. It means that the energy of that food is entirely different. It doesn't have pesticides, it doesn't have chemicals, it doesn't have pesticides that are known carcinogens, which is a normal part of the food system. It's good for you. And it's full of the medicine that nature provides for you naturally. You look after me, you look after the soil, you look after the trees, you look after the butterflies, you look after the bees, we will give you good food. Nature gives back to you and sees great food. And that food is designed by nature to support your immune system, to support your vibrancy. Much like eating it in the way we look after soil, trees, and the good farmers do. The whole biosphere they are custodians of. You give to nature, she gives back to you. It's food that's going to change you. It gives you the energy you deserve. It gives you the nutrients for the immune system that you have, that nature gave you. It's part of that kind of beauty. Once you walk into a store, when you enter the industrial paradigm, it's totally opposite. It's literally not the same food. When it comes to animals, that is quite a horrific difference. And that's why there's been this extreme swing to veganism. Because remember, pendulum's always going to swing from one extreme to the other before it comes to center. And for me, this extreme swing to not eating animals at all, which doesn't make sense in terms of the natural world, is a reaction to the horror of industrial farming. So that makes sense. The pendulum always has to swing center before we're in a place of real truth. But once you enter the industrial paradigm, you're entering a profit-driven model. You can't see the food. You're manipulated. If you had to see, you can't see the farmer. The farmer is being kept from you because the retailers, the middleman, that's where all the money is made.
Sure. I just got as you said that, I just had this download of, it's very similar to how the church placed itself as the intermediary between God and man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's exactly what has happened.
We could do 600 podcasts on that. That, goosebumps.
Yeah, I got goosebumps as I got that thought.
Yes.
So in the same way that the church placed itself as that intermediary, that is what has happened with food. And there are such strong correlations there because our food is a connection to God, to source, to universal consciousness. That is how we are feeding ourselves with the energy in plants, in animals, that comes from the sun, that comes from the universe, that comes from the earth. So it's actually so similar how industrial farming, retail food has placed itself as that intermediary between us and the source of our food, which is the farmers and the land.
And it's lucrative.
Yeah.
And you can control people. And also, you make them sick.
Yeah.
And there's another whole industry that holds hands with that.
Exactly.
If you're inspired by this conversation but are wondering where to start, then the Nudie Foodie How to Eat with Love online course is for you. In this course, I take what seems a very daunting lifestyle change and break it up into a step-by-step process. Not only do I educate you on the nitty-gritties of what exactly needs to change in your diet, I also give you the practical tools to implement this into your life, including over 100 of my original tasty and wholesome recipes. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I am big on flavor and love my food. While all my recipes are focused on your health and vitality, I never compromise on flavor. My number one goal is always to create something mouthwatering. What I really want to show you with this course is that prioritizing your health does not mean eating rabbit food or things that taste like cardboard for the rest of your life. Quite the opposite. Once you learn all my tips and tricks, you will realize that there is so much joy to be found in nourishing your body correctly, and a whole new world of deliciousness will open up to you, all while bringing your body back into balance, full health, and vibrant energy. Let me show you that even a diagnosis that requires eliminating certain things doesn't have to be scary, complicated, or boring. In the Nudie Foodie lifestyle, you can have your cake and eat it too, knowing that you're doing the best for your body and overall wellness. If you'd like to learn more, visit my website at rainedunn.com and click on the tab labeled Course. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me on raine@rainedunn.com. That's RAINE@RAINEDUNN.com.
I was talking to, I was introduced to him actually, a guy I get Persian stock from, because there's beautiful stuff from Iran. In Iran, plant medicine and food is medicine. It's just a natural part of life. And the Persian food, you did put sumac in those chicken livers.
Yes.
You've got sumac.
I love sumac.
Oh my heavens, story of sumac.
Spices.
Just that alone can replace anti-inflammatories, painkillers. About 6 different types of vitamin supplements, just sumac.
Yeah. So do you believe, I'm sure you do, but for the listeners, because this is what I believe, if we were able to fully go back to eating the way that we should, in harmony with nature, farming in this way, getting our food directly from the farmers, I believe that we would be able to return to full health, and there wouldn't be such a need for supplements and for being so consciously aware of what we're eating. The reason we have to pay so much attention to what we're eating is because we've been removed from that natural system.
So much.
Whereas if we could return to the natural system, we wouldn't have to worry about it. We would naturally be getting everything that we need, getting all the nourishment.
And we'd probably be doing a lot more work. We'd have the energy to do a lot more work on emotion and spiritual elevation.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you were describing what the difference is between this, whereas when you step into the retail paradigm, it also just clicked for me because there are certain retail stores that have some organic produce. And sometimes I'll buy some of that, but there's a very distinct difference in energy when I buy your produce. You know, every Friday when I get my delivery of fresh veggies and eggs and meat, and I don't eat a lot of dairy, but if I order some every now and then, I just have the biggest smile on my face when I'm unpacking everything, and I get so excited when I see my fridge full of that, because it's not just food. It's not just going to taste good. It has its own energy, and it feels vibrant just when I look at it, never mind when I eat it.
Right. You see why it's been so hard to give up on Organic Emporium.
Yeah.
Because so many times, I'm going to say to you, many times you see me and I can't do this anymore, this is crazy, because it's very, very difficult. And it's very difficult to make money out of this because we don't have a big enough market, blah, blah. And you don't have scale. And volume is where money is made. That's part of the problem. But I would often think, if I close Organic Emporium and I know too much, where would I get my food? And I can go another week. 13 years later. Because to lose that, you feel the difference, you taste the difference. And when I've even lost access to my own food, I've been tired, and after the retail store, there have been times where I haven't been selling and just stopped. That energetic difference you feel, and it's a loss.
Yeah.
It's a loss. And that energetic difference is life. It's life, vibrancy, taste. I mean, it's very much about the antioxidants. Antioxidants is evidence of the plant's immune system. So a healthy plant has antioxidants to fend off insects, attack, disease. Those antioxidants, see how beautiful this is, how nature loves us. Those antioxidants are the very things that support our immune system. When you've tasted food with that life in, and you really feel it, the taste, the flavor, the texture, and then you eat something that is equivalent from the industrial model that might be in a large-scale retailer that they're packing for volumes. It's not the same. It's also very efficient. So there'll be volumes, there'll be cold chain. That's a huge impact. Taking something out of the soil and getting it to your customers as soon as possible I'm so passionate about that. It's not always easy to do, but it's different food as opposed to something being trucked from a farm, I'll put that in inverted commas, that is growing for volume for the large retailer, that has to grow a monocrop that is maybe just rocket in a huge space, and then it's got to be trucked and it's got to be efficient, and sometimes it's still got to be irradiated to keep shelf life. You'll see our stuff goes off.
Yeah. As it should.
As it should.
It's very concerning when you keep something in the fridge for weeks and it's still fresh.
It's terrifying.
What have they done to it?
Well, yeah, different. You can taste that difference. That difference is energy. It's vibrancy.
Yeah. Like when you spoke of those times where you haven't had access to that food, like after closing the retail store, and you said you felt a sense of loss. And going back to that analogy that I made earlier, it creates one more level of disconnect from nature when we're not eating the way that we're supposed to. And there are so many other ways in our modern culture where we are disconnected. People are disconnected from their bodies. They're disconnected from their souls. We're disconnected from nature, from God. And so choosing to eat in this way is one more way in which you can open that pathway of deeper connection with who we really are and who we're meant to be, and with the reality of the universe, as opposed to putting ourselves in this bubble and thinking that we're separate from it all.
When you've got this beautiful food in your kitchen all day, it's every single time you stop to eat is like a prayer.
Yeah.
Just to connect to that. And I mean, that's part of the problem. People aren't making time for that. And initially, when people get out of their busy lifestyles and dedicate more time to food, it seems hairy. I don't have time. I need to stop, make a salad and throw these greens together. Once you start doing it, you're not going to stop, because the rest of your day, I mean, to not do that, the cost in terms of energy, inflammation, disease, even your mind, right? You just don't feel as... And people don't know that. And that makes me very sad, because I see people suffering things they just shouldn't need to be suffering with. Weight issues, it's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Immune issues, depression, confusion, tired, up and down, energy levels. Those are things that are so easily can just go away, and you can have this steady, beautiful energy all day long. You can manage weight management, which is a horrible word, right? It just goes away. It's
no longer a concern. That's something that I really tried to bring across in my book and in the way that I speak about food, to encourage people to realize that if you return to eating the way nature intended, the way that we're supposed to eat, weight is no longer a concern. So, often people say, I need to lose weight. Will your book help me? And the first thing I say is, this is not a diet. It's not a weight loss program. So I can't say that, because that's not my intention. But I do firmly believe that if you change to this way of eating, weight will no longer be an issue. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be model skinny, because that's not natural or healthy for all bodies. Some bodies are naturally like that. Other bodies not meant to like that. So I don't take on clients who want to lose weight and get into shape, because that's not where I'm coming from. And that's been a struggle for me, because people don't really get it. They want a solution to the problem. They want to lose weight. They want to get into shape. And I think that's something you've also had some battle with, dealing with certain clients and trying to just change their way of thinking.
If you approach this food and you let it heal you, and you get into your right relationship with it, which is, I am connecting to evidence that the natural world supports my life and I support it. And eating this food is a celebration. It tastes good. It feels good. I feel good. You're getting into the real issue, and what you and I are both so passionate about, and is you want to be getting into a place of self-care, self-love, self-value, self-worth. and the food to support that. When you're in that space, your body, you're in your relationship to your body, and your relationship to yourself becomes loving. And we don't want to encourage people to get into this with a paradigm that is punishing.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful now, and I wasn't in the past. I mean, you remember when I was absolutely nasty. You can't eat this. Yeah. What are you thinking?
But
and I've done that. But that's horrible language because this diet, that word, I wish we could just smash it forever. Those are punishing words. It connects to shame and guilt and weight, and that connection to I am defined by my weight, and I'm trying to get approval because of what I look like. And disaster zone, horrible place to be. All of us have been there. So much a part of being human in this landscape, and with food is supposed to love you. It's not supposed to make you feel horrible. And my language now is less, if I elicit any guilt or shame in giving people the information about what you're really eating when you're eating chicken from the stores, for example, or I don't want to do that, because people are not bad, they're inherent, they are victims. We've all been victims of a societal construct called capitalism. And you have the wool pulled over your eyes. You are not an idiot. You're probably tired. If you have issues with self-worth and self-value, welcome to the modern world. We're all trying to elevate out of that. It's damage we all share. I don't want to make people feel guilty and shame. Oh my God, there's one more thing I need to feel bad about. Because we don't need to be doing that. No, this is more, can we use the language of your life? When you connect to food and real organic food, and you let good farmers give you good food, you're connecting with a loving energy. And that isn't in alignment with, I need to diet, right, wrong, punishing, metrics.
Yeah.
All of that can go away. And you want that to go away when you really love yourself. It just goes away.
Yeah.
And then and we also know when you really love yourself and you're in a good space, your body, you just get into a different relationship with it. It's not about scale anymore. It's about vibrancy. It's about
vibrancy. That's a word that I use a lot when trying to explain to people what this is really about. It's about feeling vibrant. And that vibrancy comes from nature, through the plants that we eat, through the animals that we eat that have been raised correctly, farmed correctly. On that note, let's get into the controversial topic.
Are you brave soul?
Yeah. So you mentioned this pendulum swing towards veganism. Yeah. And I like the fact that you used that analogy of a pendulum, because I'm definitely seeing it start to come back to center. I actually had a good laugh the other day. I read a post on Instagram, and this woman was like, "Are you a recovered vegan like me?" So it is a movement. There are a lot of people out there who did go vegan and then stopped doing that for whatever reasons. I myself was vegan for some time. I was even raw. I went completely extreme.
We've done it all.
Yeah, and at first I felt really good because obviously it was a detox. I was cleaning out my system. But the feeling good only lasted a couple of months. And then I think I did it for about 9 months. And then my energy levels just started dropping.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that I do need to eat meat.
Yeah.
So let's talk into that. What is the real difference between industrially farmed meat versus animals that are raised correctly, ethically farmed? And how that contributes to the health of the ecosystem, which I think is something that a lot of people still don't understand.
So much.
Mass-produced vegan food is damaging to the ecosystem on a massive scale.
Disastrous.
Yeah, whereas if we farm livestock correctly, we can heal the land and go back to, soil that is nourishing the food, nourishing the plants that can then nourish us, or nourish the animal that will then nourish us.
Right. Sure. I'm trying to. This is a good practice for me in using different language to discuss this, because this was very frustrating for me on my road. Let's give an example like this. If you eat beef from Lowlands. It's probably one of the best farms in this country for true organic model. It's mixed farming. He doesn't. So if you buy beef from his farm, for example, he's not farming cattle for beef production, for meat. He's farming grass. He's farming the ecosystem. So in order to keep the soil and the ecosystem in alignment, animals are put into their right relationship with the land. And you'll be eating what needs to go. So whether we like it or not, we are custodians of this earth now. And animals, we need to provide them with the correct relationship is protection from predators, food, so that they can be in the right relationship to the sun, the soil, the grass, because they're all interacting all the time. And you can't farm good land, and you can't get good soil, and you can't get all the insects and the butterflies and all the rest of it, and the soil microbiome correct, unless you have animals doing what they do with the grass and the soil, because they're all interacting. Mm-hmm. So a farmer like Bertie, for example, who's got a mixed system to keep that whole environment in balance, has got pumpkins, and he's got corn, and he's got chickens, and they're all in their correct relationship. If you're getting his meat, it wasn't farmed for you. It sounds like a crazy thing to say, but it's not about that. You're not getting volumes. He's not farming beef. He's farming ecosystem. Beef is, the cattle are used to graze. They're nature's lawnmowers so that the grass can regenerate and their manure can fertilize the soil, etc. And the chickens are used to aerate the soil because they aerate the soil and stuff can go in. It's this beautiful, harmonious interaction of all elements of nature. So you're eating what has to go to bring the land in harmony. When you walk into a paradigm where the animal is a product, like conventional farming, you've got it's a totally different piece of meat. Nutritionally, it's a totally different piece of meat. Energetically, it's a totally different piece of meat. The one you've got is now the animal has become a product, and it is not being, what that animal needs to be healthy is irrelevant. The metric is about how much profit can we make out of this animal. Mm. So cattle, for example, are put in feedlots, and there's a growth spurt that cattle get, for example, between 9 and 12 months, because it's the price per kilo is what drives the market. So in that feedlot time, you'll be taking that cattle, you'll be putting it onto an intensive diet with a food that makes it fat and sick. I mean, soy and corn cattle are not supposed to be eating soy and corn. They don't like it. It's not good for them. It's like us eating burgers all day. They get fat, they get sick, they put on weight quickly so that growth curve spikes and they can get their money back. Mm. So that animal is just a product, and then they all get very sick because they're not living off the land, they're not in a natural environments at all. They get sick, so you have to put antibiotics in the feed. You also then give them steroids so that you can get that growth up quickly before you slaughter at 12 months, which is a baby. That's normal. So by the time when you eat that beef, that animal has not been eating its natural diet, so the benefits of that cattle being in its right relationship with the land, which for us is CLA, omega-3s, really good protein and good fats that support us. You have the opposite in a piece of beef from the industrial system. High in omega-6s, you've got antibiotic residue, you've got growth promoters, there's very little health in that meat.
And that's why meat has been given this bad rap as being unhealthy, causing high cholesterol, etc., etc.
Yes, it will do, and it goes back to we don't get away with anything. Nature's got its way of balance. So if we're going to harm and pervert nature, we don't get away with it. We harm ourselves by default. This animal has been through tremendous abuse as well. Mm. So I understand from that point of view why veganism was, cannot eat meat. You can't eat industrial meats. Don't eat industrial meat. If that were the only option, then we should become vegan. Because that meat is, from a moral point of view, from a health point of view, from an everything point of view, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's very cruel. And that cruelty lands back with us.
Yeah.
So I'm more gentle now about understanding why people swung in the other direction. But that's become very problematic too. Because
it's caused its own problems
you've seen. I mean, I get samples of plant-based vegan things for the store. There's no way I'm putting in my shop. No way. Because the harm, you're eating something that is full of soy and corn and other things, and it's part of the industrial paradigm. You've still got pesticides on it. You've still got acres of land turned over for one ingredient, which is now very popular. And there you have mass destruction of species. Insects, bacteria, butterflies, birds, bees, all the rest of it. How can that hold hands with non-cruelty? It's devastation.
I read something the other day by somebody who is an activist for educating people on regenerative farming, why we should be eating meat that has been farmed correctly, etc. And he also used to be vegan. And he said the reason he became vegan was the morality, the ethics of it. He didn't want to take a life. But then once he actually started looking deeper into it, he realized that the mass farming of the vegan products actually takes more lives than when you're eating beef, for example. And, my doctor, he's an amazing doctor, he's a homeopath, naturopath, very well studied in Eastern philosophies. And he once told me something that really stuck with me. And he said that I can't remember specifically which Eastern philosophy, but one of them, I think he said it was Buddhism. He said that in their belief, if you are going to take the life of an animal to nourish yourself, it is far preferable to take the life of a large animal that can feed and sustain many people rather than taking the life of something small where it's a whole life taken for just one meal.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck me because I feel like there are a lot of people that will eat chicken and fish but don't eat beef for ethical reasons. And that, if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense, because now you're eating one small fish for one meal, or you're eating one chicken can maybe feed a family for one meal. Whereas if you slaughter a cow, that is many, 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 many meals.
Many, many, many. And the impact that cattle has had on the life of the soil is immense. And Bertie, for example, I keep using him because he's just, that farm is, he's got pigs, he's got lambs, he's got cattle. All the most successful animals, this is the other thing, is that I don't find it, so there's talk about cruelty, it's from an evolutionary point of view, the most successful animal that has ever existed, well, the two, is beef and chickens.
Yeah.
They don't want to be extinct. Remember, the success of any species is that it wants to stay in the game. And their partnership with humans, because we eat them, has allowed them to stay on Earth and to carry on with their relationship with the soil.
If we stop eating meat, cows will go extinct.
Yeah, they don't want to. And if they do, then how are we going to fertilize the soil?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at what happened in North America with the extinction of the bison, there were these beautiful massive prairies where the bison roamed, and now with the extinction of the bison and all of this mass-scale farming, it's completely changed the ecosystem.
Destroyed it.
Yeah. And the only way to bring that back is to correctly farm livestock.
And get them back on the land, back in their right relationship. Then we do have to eat them. And they want us to.
My philosophy on this is, because one of the reasons that I went vegan, where it actually started for me was when I was living and working in Israel on a kibbutz. And I worked in the dairy. And on the one hand, I loved it because, I've been a horse rider since I was a kid, and I love being outdoors, I love animals, I love working with my hands. So I loved it on the one hand. But on the other hand, I became horrified by what I was seeing. And because I was stuck in that situation, I had to be there for a certain time period, and there was nothing I could do about it. I sort of switched myself off to it. I didn't allow myself to think about it too deeply while I was there because it was hurting me. But when I came back to South Africa and I really thought about it, I was horrified. And that's when I decided to stop eating dairy. So that was the first time I actually
became aware of any of this. And I thought, I'm not going to eat dairy anymore because I can't actually stand the way that it's farmed.
Mm-hmm.
And, for quite a period of that time, of that 6 months that I was working in the dairy, I was put in they call it the nursery. So I was all excited to work with the little baby cows. Mm-hmm. But then when I saw how they were living, it was horrible. They removed the baby cows from their mom when they're 2 days old.
Yep.
And then they put them in these cages. Mm-hmm. It's a cage it doesn't even have a comfortable floor for them to lie on. They don't get to lie, they don't touch grass, they don't get to lie on straw or anything. It's the floor of the cage is the same as the sides of the cage. It's a grid. It's a steel grid, so that when they poo, it just goes straight through and you can wash it off. And they're being bottle fed, and they're completely isolated in this little cage. They have no contact with their mom or with any other animals.
They're a product.
And that fucking broke my heart. And that was why I stopped eating dairy the first time. And then, of course, that led me to think, well, if I'm not going to eat dairy, then I shouldn't eat meat either, because if this is how the dairy cows are treated, how are the other cows treated? So that was why I went vegan. But what I've come to realize and understand is that, as you were saying, these animals, they have their place in the ecosystem, just like we do. And, we don't look at a lion and say, oh, well, it's cruel that the lion is eating the buck, because that's nature. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. So our moral and ethical issue with eating meat, as you said, it's not about eating an animal. It's about the way it's being done today. That's why it's disturbing so many people when they realize how farming works.
That's right.
Whereas when you can start coming back into the right relationship with eating meat, then you learn that appreciation for the fact that this is part of the circle of life, the cycle, the energetic cycle of life. The sun feeds the plants, the earth feeds the plants, and then the plant feeds the animal, and then the animal feeds us, and then all of us die and go back into the soil and nourish the soil. And when you feel that energetic cycle by eating like this, you start to have a very deep reverence and respect for the entire cycle, and you respect the plants as much as you respect the animals, as much as you respect your own body. And I think that's where the real difference starts to come in.
This is what's difficult to talk about for people who are seeing killing animals as death, whether it's industrial model or organic. It is death, but we're talking about life. We're talking about the acceptance of the cycles of life. That in nature, an organic farmer, you walk in with an organic farmer and he explains to you how everything connects. It's a cycle of life feeding life, feeding life. And even death isn't death in the way we egoically understand death and we're so terrified of. In nature, it's a permanent cycle of life. And when I'm eating animals from an organic paradigm and from those farmers, I love that animal.
Yeah.
I'm accepting the reverence. I'm accepting their blessing, how they are supporting my life, and by eating it, how I'm supporting theirs, not the one animal, but the species, and the upliftment of that and healing of a whole biodiversity. We're all friends in this. It's about whether we're talking about life or death, and you can't often resolve that argument for militant vegans. It's cruel to kill. No, we're all going to die. Everything dies. Right? We can't escape it. I mean, if it hurts and there's trauma around that, that's not connected to that's your trauma around cruelty. But the natural world, as you say, you go and spend time on a Karoo lamb farm, into the Karoo, and just see how cruel nature is. That also changed my perspective. What we do, I remember being on a lamb farm, deep Karoo, and being traumatized by what nature would do to little lambs. Horrible. Nature's freaking cruel. I mean, there were lynx that will kill a lamb just for fun. She doesn't want to eat it. But the contrast between the predators in the area and how they're trying to steal lamb, eat lamb, and all that, and the cruelty around it paled. I mean, it wasn't what that farmer was doing in the way they slaughtered those lamb, and done in such a respectful way that they didn't get stressed and all the rest of it, and gave them food and gave them protection from predators. It's was nowhere near what nature does to lambs. Just respectful.
I think something that really helped me in my journey with this is I very often come back, like I hold this image in my mind of, you know how you hear about the traditional hunters, whether it's like amongst the Khoisan in Southern Africa or the Native American hunters or whoever it was. But this has been humans for hundreds of thousands of years, but now we just think of it as these certain specific special tribes. But this is really our history as humanity, is that when an animal was hunted and they killed the animal, the first thing they would do was kneel at that animal and thank it for giving its life to nourish them, because without that animal's life, they would perish.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's something which we've lost touch with in the modern world. And now people think that we can survive without meat. Yes, we can survive, but are we thriving? Do we have vibrance? Because now we're replacing meat with all of these fake products that are highly processed and don't really contain any real nutrition, don't contain that life force energy. And thinking that, oh, well, it has the same amount of protein, so therefore it's fine. When there's really so much.
Some of them, I mean, a lot of the vegan and the plant-based processed junk food arena is just terrifying. You might as well just go and eat a burger. Any burger. It's junk food.
Yeah.
And you see, it's again, we're always going back to, if you're not able to see how the ingredients are farmed, and you're not connecting with how is this farmed, what natural system is this coming from, or is it coming from an industrial paradigm? That needs to be the discernment. It's, can I see the farmer and how is this farmed? If you can't see that, you are eating junk.
Mm. Let's talk about, because you sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. So we're saying that this is the way that we should be eating. And you mentioned that it's been very difficult for you to run the store and keep it going because it's not very profitable. And we've got this massive food industry that is driven by profit. So how? What is the solution to the problem? How do we go back to eating in this way? Because we would have to completely step away from that retail paradigm.
We'd have to step away from the retail, and we'd have to spend more time. It holds hands with needing to reorganize our lives around healing in every aspect. The eating this way is creating. It's coming from modern society's need for convenience. How we organize our time, the place that we work from. If you're in a rush, dash, anxiety to make money, hell, you need the retailers. And they're going to help you stay in it because it's just so convenient. But it isn't really convenient. Convenience foods, if you're picking things off the shelves that are convenient, so I don't have to spend too much time in the kitchen, and they're convenient. But in the long run, it isn't convenient because it's actually affecting your health, and you're going to end up spending more on doctor's bills and supplements and energy issues and etc. We've got to change. First of all, we've got to change our relationship to how much time we allocate in a day to value ourselves, and then we're going to need to relook at work, our relationship to money, what we're actually spending all of our hours on, and reprioritize how we're going to approach food. The real answer is that we need to be buying directly from farmers.
So what I'm envisioning as you're talking about all of this is what we really need is very many more small-scale farmers and urban farms, like a small urban farm that supplies that suburb would be the solution, rather than a farm down in Cape Town supplying apples for the entire country.
Exactly. So you need an educated consumer who values that, so that they can do enough volumes. It will never be mass volumes. That's why when people say organic is just a money-making thing, I've yet to meet anybody in the true organic space that's made money. The opposite.
It's a money-making thing for people who aren't really doing organic.
Right. They can just slap on stupid labels and push out volumes. And that's where the money is, but that's not where the life is. If we could get into direct relationship with the farmers, I'm more passionate now after what I've been through and learning that retail and that capitalist middle piece needs to go. Going forward, I need to work more on farmer to consumer direct models. So how can you liaise directly with the farmer and have the farmer deliver to your house and get support in how to eat that way? So the best way is you want Lower Lands to be delivering to your door. And it comes to Priska, I mean, I'm that intermediary now, but going forward, and you will order what he has needed to slaughter. You need to eat according to what he needs to slaughter to keep the whole ecosystem. He can't farm for your needs because your needs have been shaped by the industrial model, which tells you can have endless fillet, which is and you should eat chicken thigh. I mean, only chicken breast, and you need to learn how to eat with all the cuts to help that farmer.
Nose to tail.
Right, nose to tail eating. So you need to pack your freezer with clean meat from that farmer and your chicken, all the rest of it, and you need to work with that throughout the month so that keeps you away from having to rush into the stores and buy industrial meats. Then you need dairy. You need to be in a relationship with a farmer that is delivering weekly.
Well, I remember when I was very little, the farmer was still delivering milk in glass bottles to our doorstep. And then at some point in my childhood, I remember that changing, and suddenly milk came in a plastic bottle from a supermarket.
And it was way cheaper as well. So this is the other thing.
Yeah.
And then on the local produce, you want local growers that will come and deliver fresh stuff. And then you've got to get into a beautiful relationship with food where it's about, I've got this incredible food from the best farm and it feel good. How am I going to work with it? Instead of I need a recipe and I need this and I don't know, and you just start naturally just cook with that, and start getting into recipes or just intuitively playing with the food. People are quite insecure about what to do and how to cook, and that part they can overcome quite quickly once they.
I got such a beautiful message from somebody who bought my book. She actually did my online course first, and then she bought the book. And a while ago, she sent me a message, and she said she's not using my recipes as much as she used to, because she used to cook from my book every single day. But she said now she's starting to just intuitively cook whatever's in her fridge, in her pantry. But she says, I still use your methods. And that made me so happy because that is exactly what I want for people. I don't want you to be reliant on my recipes forever. I want you to use my recipes to start to develop this relationship with the food, and this understanding of what tastes good, what goes together, how to work with the spices and the herbs and all the natural, beautiful flavors that are available to us. And then once you learn how to do that, you don't need recipes anymore. I mean, I very, very, very seldomly ever cook from recipes, because my father taught me how to cook like that. He would open the fridge and see what's there. And I would be in the kitchen with him. And so that's how I learned to cook. You open the fridge and you see what's there. You open the pantry and what's available.
Right.
And I can remember so many times him like opening the fridge or opening the pantry and being like, oh shit, like we don't really have anything. We need to go shopping because there's hardly anything left. And yet he would still manage to cook the most amazing meal from what looked like nothing. And that's one of my skills as well.
Me too. Yeah,
I can just come up with an amazing meal when there's nothing in the fridge.
Carrots and rocket and a pea. Yay. And I've got cashew butter. And next minute you go, wow.
Yeah.
and you've got that gives you that kind of trust to just play around. It doesn't have to be complicated. But that distrust of ourselves with food as well is just crazy. It's another sad part of having supermarkets run your pantry.
Yeah. Last week I was down in Cape Town visiting my cousin, and I so enjoyed watching her cook. She insisted that I not help with the cooking at all. She was like, no, you're always cooking. And she cooks for her family every night. So she was like, don't worry, you can just sit and chat to me while I'm cooking. And I really enjoyed watching her cook because Everything that she makes is very simple, but she orders everything also organic from a beautiful farm in Cape Town, gets delivered to her door. So she orders everything from there. So every single thing that she's using is of the highest quality and is so vibrant with that life force energy. And she just cooks everything really simply, plainly, like no fancy methods. She doesn't go crazy with spices and herbs. Like I like exotic and complicated flavors.
Me too.
Oftentimes. So sometimes my cooking can get very complicated. Hers was just so simple and clean and so delicious. Like everything just brought out the natural flavor of that thing. And I think that's something that if people could understand that, they would realize how easy this can be. Because when they look at the way that we eat and the way that we cook, they're very daunted by it. And they feel like it's too much, I don't have time, it's overwhelming, I can't do that. And yes, in the beginning, it will feel like that. But over time, it just becomes normal. Like now it's such a natural, normal, everyday part of my life. It doesn't feel like effort.
No, it doesn't.
And then you have to ask yourself the question, how important is my health to me?
Right.
Or if you have the moral and ethical concerns about the ecosystem, about the planet as a whole, about animals and how they're being treated, how important is that to you? Are you willing to put this effort in?
And is my money and my time, my energy in alignment with my true values? That's the core exercise we will have to do. Because a lot of people will say organic food is too expensive. It actually isn't.
Yeah.
When you eat this way and you're buying, the meat will be more expensive per kilogram because you don't have the volume.
But you don't need as much of it.
You don't need as much of it. Your meals, I mean, nowadays I'm eating a lot of greens, like mixing micro herbs and sprouts and rocket and the greens. A plate of that, you're getting a masses of nutrition, so much nutrient density, a lot of fiber, very little calories, and that's just throwing different leaves together. I mean, that's just throwing herbs together, throwing them all together, and then adding, sometimes, because I don't cook for a family anymore, it's not my lifestyle now I have my daughter with me sometimes, and then I'm single, so I often just have to grab stuff.
Yeah,
boil some eggs.
I do the same.
Throw together a plate of greens that I've got in the fridge, black kale, spinach, bit of olive oil, salt and pepper. Oh my heavens! It's beautiful because the food speaks for itself. It's got so much flavour. I want people to know more about that. It's an utter joy. You can sit and just, if you don't have time, run to your fridge and throw rocket on a plate with a beautiful olive oil and a good vinegar and whatever clean protein you had that you can quickly cook, and then you can add seeds and butter and nut butter. I mean, the other night I came in and I was rushed and hungry and hadn't kind of eaten. I wasn't going to be doing anything that involved pots or pans or anything. And all I did was took some berries that we had and a big blob of macadamia butter, a bit of honey, and then Lowlands pecans and chopped them up, and ate that with rocket. What is? I know.
So good.
Oh, and the Durner smoked mozzarella, just a couple of chunks. Now that's a lot of nutrition.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what organic snacking. It took me, I wanted to chuck, but because I have that in my kitchen, so people can just get the stuff into the kitchen.
Yeah.
Once it's there, just grab and feel what you feel like. And that's what I love about your book and about your message and that story about that woman who is now starting to intuitively feel. It should be that intuitive. It shouldn't be a chore. Yeah. And once you get into a relationship, because these ingredients are in your kitchen, and you might need the book to start understanding how to use things you might never have used before, like nut butter and cashew butter and seeds and whatever, then your body will start telling you what it wants. You'll get, I feel like rocket is a thing you can see this week. My whole body is rocket.
I also go through those phases of rockets.
Rocket. When I go through that phase, and it's usually this time when rocket comes alive. So
well, let's talk about that, seasonal eating, and how that's been completely destroyed.
Oh, it's a complete mess.
The retail paradigm.
Sorry, it's a complete mess.
Because nature's providing us with exactly what we need through every season.
And in the right context as well. It gives you context-relevant food. So what is growing in the region where we live is very much connected to the energy of what we need. So in tropical areas where you're getting coconuts and pineapples and all the rest of it, there are things in there that are antioxidants in those tropical fruits that protect your skin in the sun.
Yeah.
Nature is very, very, very clever. I want you connected. She's going to give you what you need. So in winter, if you connect to what is the land growing in our area, for example, in winter, she starts to move into nutrient-dense, heavier foods.
Yeah.
So pumpkins and squashes and all the rest of it, because that's what we need.
Yes.
To support a system, right, to provide internal heat.
So something that's been very interesting for me over the last couple of years, as this relationship with my body has deepened and deepened, what I've been finding is that in the past, I was always like, I've got to eat lots of salad, lots of greens, lots of raw, fresh stuff. And I would force myself to do that even during winter, even though it was cold, and that's not really what you want to be eating, because I thought, that's how I'm going to get my nutrients. So I was forcing myself to eat all of this, lots of fresh greens, lots of fresh raw vegetables. Whereas in the last couple of years, what I found during winter is I don't want that. I don't want to eat that. What I'm craving is root vegetables, dal, like warm, nourishing stuff. So that's what I've been doing.
And
so sometimes
spices,
during winter, I'm not eating any fresh green stuff, but I'm eating the other stuff that nature is growing for us.
Nature's not growing that light green stuff because you don't need it. She wants you to be able to generate internal heat. And warming spices. I mean, most spices have a warming effect. And the body wants to knuckle down. It wants to hold on to energy so that it can provide internal heat to protect you from the cold. You poor thing eating salad in the middle of winter.
I know, right?
Your body goes, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But in summer, nature, the greens and the different lettuces and all the light fruits and that, she wants us to have things with extremely high antioxidant levels, but that are light and cooling. And she wants us to shed weight. I mean, we are supposed to lose weight in summer because it's sunny, it's outdoors, should be out.
That's something a lot of people don't realize or understand, is that our weight is meant to fluctuate.
Right.
People think that they need to attain this perfect weight and then must stay at that weight for the rest of their lives, whereas we are meant to gain some weight in winter and lose it again come the spring. Like what I found, I think especially this year, is that during those winter months, I had absolutely no desire to eat like a salad or anything like fresh and light. I just wasn't interested in it. And the moment spring came, it was like a switch flipped. And all of a sudden, I was just craving fruit and rockets and lots of light, fresh stuff.
Get out in the sun,
when you
food.
Get into that space where you really are living cyclically and listening to your body tells you what it needs.
And it puts you back in touch with your own intuition. And then you can trust and you can relax and you can love food again. And you can... But you can only do that if you've got access to it. You see, this is the difficulty. How do you get access to it? And that's been the problem I've been trying to iron out with Organic Emporium for. And still am. Because we are living in this modern context and the stores make it easy to just run in and grab stuff. But I would say to people, the more you can try and find places where you can be buying directly from the farmer. And that give you a relationship to the farmer. So that you really get an understanding of and get into the joy of the story and how it connects, the farmer's story connects to nature. So when you're eating it, you're really aware, consciously aware when you're eating it, that you're eating something that is nourishing you. There's such a deep sense of joy and gratitude and love in that moment of reflection, even in the busiest of days, that upholds your life. It's sad for me to see people not know that. You and I know it. We've been doing it for so long. And we can also see the cost of it, of not knowing that. The cost is huge. It's immense. Disease and obesity and mood swings and all sorts of issues can be I can change a person in a week with food. I can change myself in a week with food. You stop eating this food and natural whole foods from good farms for a week and eat rubbish, we're going to be different humans by the end of the week. Miserable, tired, bloated, inflammation, pains, probably get sick.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned right in the beginning, I can't remember now what his name was, but that guy back in 1936.
Lord Northbourne.
Lord
I need to
Northbourne.
get that book. I actually gave it away and I'm going to get you a copy.
Yes, please. I do want to read it. But, you said that in his book he was sounding the alarm bells. And look
Here
at
we
where we
are.
are now. 70, 90 years later. There's this epidemic of illness, disease. So many people are sick and it's become normalized. People think it's normal. They think it's their normal state to be sick and then you fix it with drugs.
Yep.
And it's so frustrating for me to see that people really and truly deeply believe that, and they'll argue with me that the only way to be healthy is by using pharmaceuticals. And I think what people are not understanding, because they haven't been able to zoom out and see the larger picture, is that is a tiny little sliver of the picture in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it looks to you in the here and now, because you don't know anything else. You think that your only way to health is through taking the right pharmaceuticals and maybe, if you're open-minded enough, the right supplements. And maybe you even go so far as to think, okay, also I need to exercise and eat healthy. But what is healthy? If you don't have this real understanding of the fact that it's not just, I'm cutting down on eggs so that my cholesterol doesn't get higher, or I'm not going to eat meat because they say that it causes cancer, or I'm going to cut out gluten because that's fashionable now. But you're still not understanding the bigger picture. You're not understanding that the entire system is sick, and that's why we're sick.
Exactly. You're not connecting to nature and to food. You're connecting to a model. It's very lucrative, this model. Love, I haven't used antibiotics. And as you know, I have been extremely stressed. Running that store, the bill, I've been through periods of extreme stress. And when you're highly stressed and very anxious, you get sick. Doesn't matter what you're eating. I was eating the most pristine diet. I haven't needed to take an antibiotic. People hate you for saying this, but they're totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. There's so many foods. Nature gives you natural antibiotics everywhere.
Yeah.
Thyme, oregano,
garlic.
These are natural
Coconut
antibiotics. Ginger, natural inflammatories, curcumin.
Licorice.
They're all over the place.
Antimicrobial. Yeah,
Sumac.
there's so much. Sumac.
Tastes delicious. Put it on everything. It's anti-inflammatory. It's also antimicrobial, antiviral, antibiotics. Nature has a full medicine cabinet for you.
Food heals.
Food is medicine.
Yeah.
Nature heals. Nature loves you. Nature wants you to be vibrant. Like she wants herself to be vibrant, and she organizes it so that she is. And she's been pretty successful. We can die of cancer and heart disease and all the rest of it, but that mountain and that tree, it's going to stay here. It was here before you. It's going to stay long after you. She knows what she's doing. If we just submit to her wisdom and let her love us, and you can do that through consciously connecting to food and understanding what you're eating, and let organic farmers tell you what's actually going on in the land. Let her look after you. Submit to her wisdom, and all will be well. All right? But once we walk into the stores, that food system, the industrial food paradigm, is there to make money and to manipulate you into wanting that food. You have to understand that they're not there because they care about you. They're not there, and they have to do massive volumes to make money. They also make most of the money. What you have to understand is, you're standing at a retail store and you take a packet of lettuce off the shelf and it might cost 10 rand. The farmer's only seeing 2. And never mind that the farm labourer, the farm labourers that had to pick the lettuce are probably not even earning mostly minimum wage. So their children aren't able, many of them, there's a book Tracy Ledger wrote about this, they're not able to feed their own children. The guys that grew your lettuce in that paradigm. And all the fat is sitting with the retailer. Because a retailer needs to spend a lot of money on marketing, to get your attention, on packaging, on cold chain, on distribution. It's a very expensive model. If we buy directly from the farmer, he gets to take out more. Organic farmer, most of the price you're paying is going back to him, and he's looking after your health, he's looking after the land, he's looking after an entire ecosystem. You're investing in bringing universes back to life, which supports your life and longevity of this planet and your own longevity.
My belief is that our body's natural state is vibrant health.
It is.
And the only reason we don't have that vibrant health is because something is blocking it, something is unbalancing it. And that can be the food that you're eating, the products that you're putting on your skin or into your body. It can be the people that you're spending time with, your internal thoughts, your unresolved trauma. All of that blocks us from vibrant health. But nonetheless, the body's natural state is a constant state of healing.
It's a miraculous body. Once you get into that, there isn't anything you can't heal. Just a little bit of attention.
A little bit of attention and love.
A little bit of attention and love. And this food is love. This food is love.
Yeah, food is love. It is. That's why I named my book How to Eat with Love, because it is such an act of love when you choose to eat like this. To really and truly nourish your body, to respect the earth, respect the produce, respect the animal. And it all comes full circle. You're nourishing yourself with love.
You're nourishing yourself with love. You're receiving the love that you're due, you're entitled to, you're worth, and you're giving love. You're giving love and respect back to nature, honouring her and saying thank you. You can do that 4 or 5 times a day with what you eat.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to end with just a little more light-hearted couple of questions. Are you reading anything at the moment?
No, I'm podcasting at the moment.
Podcasting at the moment.
Sorry.
What is one book, it doesn't have to be about the subject, but just any book that you think every person needs to read?
I would love everybody to have Look to the Land.
That
so they can have they can have retailers and everybody stop manipulating them and go back to the original conversation.
Look to the
land.
land.
Last paragraph in Look to the Land, if you read that book properly, it'll make you cry. I need to order. I think I got them from Amazon. The last paragraph of his book, I'm getting goosebumps, is about what you just said and what we've just concluded with. It's about the connection between the farm, the land, honouring it, and love.
Beautiful. That's Look to the Land by Lord
Northbourne. Look, he died a long time ago, but the book is available. If you really want to understand what organic really means, don't ask the retailers. There are so many agendas and interests, and go and read that book.
Okay.
I would like them to have your cookbook. No, and I mean it, because I've been freaking doing recipes for years. I don't need cookbooks. But you have this gift you always have done.
Thank you. Question number 2. One practice or daily habits, something like that you would love to see more people doing to support their wellness?
Meditation. You see, I don't think I'm supposed to say a food thing, but
no. Anything.
I would love to see people making time first and foremost. Eating good food comes naturally once you start meditating regularly, because that just brings you into a state of really being able to understand your whole energy and who you really are, put the mind back in its place and bring down anxiety and make space for releasing feelings of guilt and shame and trauma, which are the very things that make us emotionally eat in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
I would love people to get back in touch with the overarching energy that governs their lives. And, meditating is a time where you set time aside to enter a space where you are learning that you are not the mind, not identified with the mind, and then you access this very energy we've been talking about the whole time. The mother, that overarching, the God energy, whatever people want to call that. That calming down and that taking that space to want to experience, again, to relationship with healing and joy and support, and that knowledge that we are not just these lone individuals. We are not separate from this big, grand energy. That, for me, is more important than running to the shop trying to find organic.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Because then when you do want to, and you hear of an organic farm, or you want to invest in this food, it's coming from a place of joy and bliss and wanting to enhance your connection to what you have found within yourself and outside of yourself, where you know there is love on a huge scale. It's a different way when you want to go and find good food than to support that. You're coming from a place of bliss and joy and care and love and celebration, rather than from fear, shame, guilt, weight. Blah, blah.
Where can people get hold of you? Or the Organic Emporium?
The website, it's organicemporium.coza. The Instagram page is _organic_emporium. But they can also WhatsApp me, because I do a lot of more to my close group.
Okay.
Lists out of what the farmers have this week on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I will list your number in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
being
love.
here and having another beautiful conversation, as we always do.
We always
mind
do.
expanding, soul expanding, more than mind expanding even.
And we'll do more, because there's so much to us.
No, there'll definitely be more.
Thank you, woman.
Oh my God, your chicken livers.
You liked it!
Oh, that recipe is amazing.
Right?
Mind blowing. I was about to say we made it last night, but that's completely untrue. Wesley made it last night.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. All I did was pour it in the recipe and he made it. And it was...
Did you use flour or the macadamia butter?
We had cashew butter. And it worked so well to thicken that sauce. We actually had to add more stock afterwards because it got a bit too thick.
Wow.
But the flavours were just so good.
I don't like chicken liver taste.
I love
eat
it.
them.
I love it when it's done right. But when it's not done right, they're disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that was by far the best chicken livers I've ever had last night. We were both like in ecstasy. So thank you.
Love bliss.
No, I literally said to Wes, if I ever write another recipe book, I'm going to feature your chicken liver recipe.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at raine.dunn or email me on raine@rainedunn.com. To learn more about my different services and offers and explore how we can work together to help you find more vibrance and expansion in your life, visit my website, rainedunn.com.